Inside each shelter is an NBC or filtration system. NBC stands for nuclear, biological, and chemical. And inside the bunker, this is like the den. They wanted folding beds in here.
Yeah, that's a humble abode being installed beneath this humble house by a company called Atlas Survival Shelters. Your comfy home away from home should your home no longer be a home. After all, with global security leaders warning that nuclear threats are rising, thanks in part to surging weapons spending around the world, many among us here in the United States have decided, in the event of some unfortunate news, they'd rather be living in a safe than sorry.
People are uneasy, and they want a safe place to put their family. And they have this attitude that it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
That's the CEO of this bomb shelter company, Ron Hubbard. Not that one. Who observes that, kind of like a pack of gum, you just never know where you're going to encounter a situation where you'd like to be fully prepared. Hence the market for bomb and fallout shelters in the US being forecast to grow from $137 million last year to $175 million by 2030. According to a market research report from Blue Weave Consulting that cites the rising threat of nuclear or terrorist attacks or civil unrest. And yeah, from the pandemic to drones to the Middle East to whatever's in the water causing doppelgangers to multiply in spades. Our CEO here basically notes that Americans' unbound optimism is good for business.
Most people surveyed believe that there will be a World War III one day and it will be very catastrophic, and that these shelters will have great value at that time.
Value, of course, is something in the eye of the beholder, given that government disaster experts say that doomsday bunkers aren't necessary, and a 100-page guide put out by FEMA finds that when it comes to responding to a nuclear detonation, existing spaces like a basement provide enough protection from radioactive fallout.
It doesn't have to be fancy. Almost any non-residential building in the US is going to work. Think about your supermarket. Think about all the shelves of stuff. That's protection. Plus a place to have a snack while you're waiting.
That's a scientist at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, the place where the US government designs nuclear weapons, who points out that in the event of a bad afternoon, you won't necessarily need to make the most of your underground motel room like some character out of Silo.
The actual amount of time is fairly short. This is not COVID. This is not shelter in place for months or years on end. The most dangerous times, honestly, for immediately life-threatening sorts of concerns are the first couple hours. And again, it does depend on your scenario, but certainly by the first 12 to 24 hours, you're basically fine.
Underground bunkers, if we ever get to a point where there's all-out nuclear war, aren't going to protect people.
That's Representative James McGovern of Massachusetts, who for years has been pushing an innovation of his own to combat the possibility that we'll all be singing show tunes underground one day. Nuclear nonproliferation.
Instead, we ought to be investing our resources and our energy trying to talk about a freeze initially, and then finding ways to engage countries that possess nuclear weapons.
Many non-proliferation advocates, of course, bristle at the very notion that a nice little bunk bed and a bucket of chum will be enough to survive nuclear annihilation. And even if a bunch of us somehow do, who's to say we won't all devolve into those bomb-worshipping mutants from the second Planet of the Apes movie, who, spoiler alert from 2,000 years in the future, end up blowing up the Earth from beneath the ground anyway.
This is the largest bomb shelter factory in the world. It's on a 10-acre piece of property in a 72,000 square foot building, and we are covered wall to wall on underground bomb shelters.
While Nuclear Armageddon might not be as chill as an Explosions in the Sky album, back at Atlas's bomb shelter manufacturing facility in Texas, there's still plenty of evidence that this ongoing boom in private doomsday bunker sales will, at least for some, at least for the time being, provide a little bit of comfort to those who want to hunker down and throw on Oppenheimer to help pass the clock as hell ravages the Earth. And hey, in case Oppenheimer's not long enough, well, if there's still an internet, you could try to subscribe to the News Refresh, the place where we put out new, weird, and interesting news videos like these. Assuming, of course, that we're still around.